Good evening, everyone. It's Isaac here, and you're watching the Orthodox Lunatic. This is something that I definitely need to talk about and need to address and put my ideas and thoughts about this out there. We really need to talk about politics, not necessarily like political views, political debates, whether our political views are correct or incorrect, or socialism or capitalism or conservatism or liberalism or communism, whatever else you can think of that people tend to clash about it as far as political views and political ideologies. But instead, we need to discuss the divide that political views create among Orthodox Christians and how this is not really the best thing for us. There are Orthodox groups on Facebook that are like, Orthodox libertarians, Orthodox conservatives, Orthodox against Trump. There's different things like that, and obviously there's nothing wrong with being a part of these groups and discussing with each other political views of why you think certain stuff is right, why you think certain stuff is incorrect. But there is a major disdain between people, and the basis for people essentially disdaining each other is on political views. And I think that there's a couple different factors at play here. But I also think there's one big thing that people are not necessarily understanding when we're talking about politics, and we're talking about politicians, and we're talking about economics and all these other things. I think that multiple sides on the issue of politics within the church, just individual people kind of siding with each other on certain issues. I think that there is a fundamental lack of understanding about, in many cases, what the other side believes and how they feel about their own ideas and so on and so forth. And I really wanted to expose this. I wanted to make light of this, and I want to put this out in such a way that I think the people watching will benefit and will learn something. So in America right now, the political climate obviously has been pretty bad since the last election, because the general contention of most of the people in the States was that you either had to vote for Trump to beat Hillary, or you had to vote for Hillary to beat Trump. We're both very, very unpopular candidates, and a lot of people stayed home instead of voting. A lot of people went out and voted for a third-party candidate because they felt that the candidates that were there were so bad. And in addition to that, other people, obviously, and not necessarily the majority, went and voted for one candidate to beat the other because they felt that the other was so bad and so destructive to America. Now, I'm not giving my opinion on which one is right, which perspective is correct, if any at all, but there has been, in the past couple of years, a major divide among Orthodox Christians because of the way that many of us have been talking about politics with each other. And I think that we don't adequately understand what each person is going for, because essentially, when you latched on very strongly to a political ideology, or maybe even loosely, and we're talking about hot buzzwords, like capitalism, socialism, feminism, LGBTism, we're talking about all these things, and many of them are sensitive issues that a lot of people have very strong opinions about. And when we get into a discussion, it is very easy to feel like that we are being attacked when someone criticizes our political views and when someone criticizes our kind of standings. And I think that this mentality is completely fallacious. And the reason that I think it is fallacious is because everyone on every side thinks, obviously, that they're correct. They hold to the views that they do because they believe that, their particular political views and their particular political persuasions are going to be the best thing for mankind in general, for the human race, for different people in different places. And I think that there is a major disparity in understanding between different ideologies, because here's a couple of different things that I see. I see from the Orthodox Christian left that some of them are social democrats, some of them are just outright socialists, different brands of socialists. Some of them are maybe capitalists, but they're very left-leaning capitalist liberals. Essentially, they seem to think that Orthodox Christians who are on the right want poor people to starve, or they want poor people to suffer and not get any kind of help. And then when you, obviously this is a very negative and disparaging view of the other side. And when I look at the Orthodox Christian right and the way that they are viewing the other side, they are viewing the other side in such a way where they think that Orthodox Christian leftists are just, they want the government to control the economy, they want the government to control everything, they want big bureaucrats to rule the land and that kind of thing. And I don't feel that this accurately represents either position's actual views, but rather it is indicative of, I think, a bias that people tend to take towards other people. When you're thinking about someone else's viewpoints and you're thinking about someone else's opinion and you are running that over in your mind, many people have the tendency to, instead of addressing that person's actual viewpoint, they tend to maybe tweak it a little bit to make something that's more easily criticizable or critiquable, whatever the terminology is there. And I see a lot of this going on because I've seen in different circles on Orthodox Christian groups, some that are more right-leaning, some that are more left-leaning, that someone brings up a particular point or someone else brings up a different point, and people get into these discussions and people end up fighting with each other and blocking each other and just totally tearing each other apart, because essentially one side seems to think that the other is evil, or that the other side is trying to do evil, when I don't think that's actually the case at all. My personal perspective is, obviously I lean right, but I don't want people to starve. I don't want people to suffer from quote unquote capitalism. I think that leftist views are basically, or leftist ideologies and policies actually cause poverty and contribute to many of the problems that the left would like to solve. But what I see coming, like I said, from the Orthodox Christian left, is they're painting the Orthodox Christian right as completely horrible, completely demonic, and they are having like moral criticisms of capitalism. They're saying capitalism is inherently evil, capitalism is inherently greedy. And I essentially see the same thing from the Orthodox Christian right at the same time. They're like, the Orthodox Christian left, isn't Christian. They want government to control anything. They want to take money from everybody. They want to, leave everybody hungry and starving. And I think that God, looking down from his throne on Orthodox Christians, on his people, bickering with each other in such a way that's not necessary, that is creating divides between us, I think he is very saddened by that. And I believe the devil is in the works here. The devil is in the details. Because everyone has political views. I don't think any individual agrees 100% on every single issue, because you look at political parties. You have like the Republican Party, the Democratic parties, the big ones, smaller ones like the Libertarian Party, the Green Party, the Constitutionalist Party. Individuals in these parties, each individual person still has ideas and beliefs they hold that are going to be different from every other member of the party or every other person that tends to vote for that party. And that's okay. People have different views about different things. And I think that we as Orthodox Christians are allowing ourselves to harshly judge the other side, people that have different political and social views than we do, simply because they're different. I think it could almost be described as a form of discrimination, because whether you're a person on the right disparaging somebody on the left, you're a person on the left disparaging somebody on the right, or you're somewhere in between, you take some other type of side. This, the conservative liberal binary is not obviously set in stone. There's a lot of different opinions and views about different things. Regardless of where you're coming from, it is very easy to pass judgment on other people who have different perspectives and different views and different opinions. And like I said, the reason I think the devil's in the details is because I think the devil is using politics in order to attack his followers. I think it's a classic example of divide and conquer. I think that he is using different political views in order to separate Orthodox Christians, instead of allowing us to love each other, to help each other, to be charitable to each other. I think that he is using it in a very evil manner to just essentially make us judge each other if we don't all have very similar political views, or we judge other people if they don't have political views that are pretty much the same as ours. You can express that in a million different ways, but I think that's essentially what's going on. And I think that we really need to take a step back and look at the long term and the wider effects of this, because like I said, it's divide and conquer. Instead of us just being one holy Catholic and Apostolic Church, like it says in the Creed, he is taking things like political views that, at the end of the day, every single one of us is going to die. We're going to pass into the spiritual realm, and we're going to, not really have political views or persuasions at that point. Politics are strictly for here on earth. And at that point, those political differences, those are not going to matter anymore. But we are becoming so divided because of our political views and our persuasions and how we talk with other people inside of the church that have other views, that, different views than we do, that we're allowing us to create almost factions within the church. And I have spoken out and I have condemned this type of behavior before, not in political manners, but I've talked about the one video where I'm talking about racism in parishes, the heresy of Philotism that was condemned, but is unfortunately still a thing. I think the devil is trying to divide and conquer in more than one way, because I think he uses Philotism and racism. I think he uses lots of other things, but I think that one of the easiest tools in his toolbox to attempt to come into the Orthodox Church and cause havoc for us and separate Orthodox Christian believers is by using our political persuasions to divide each other. We are not listening to understand what the other side thinks, whether we're talking about Orthodox Christians that have different views that we do, or Protestants, or Catholics, or atheists, or Buddhists, or whoever we're listening to. We're not listening to learn. We're not listening to have an intelligent dialogue, have a dialogue that's going to be useful for everyone involved, and what's going to be useful for everyone that is hearing all the things that are being said, and they're going to take something home with them, and it's gonna make them learn something. It's going to ultimately better their life and their intellect at the end of the day. We're not doing that. Instead, many of us are simply waiting on the other side to express a certain set of ideas, maybe with very good intentions, so that we can then go in and essentially berate them, flagellate them, just essentially crawl up their rear end and give them hell for their views and say, hey, you're unchristian, this is unchristian, this is bad, this is shameful, blah, 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 blah. It's this behavior I'm seeing from both sides, or, there's technically more than two. You can categorize political views in different ways, but I am seeing all over the Orthodox Christian world, whether we're talking about tradox or hyperdox groups, or we're talking about Orthodox hipster, or we're talking about the Eastern and Oriental Unity group on Facebook, or we're talking about just all types of different groups with different leanings in the whole world of Orthodoxy. The devil is using it to divide us. He is using it to make us judge each other and make us harm each other, to the point that maybe there could be schisms. There could be just, even if there's not an official schism, there could be so much division that certain people at certain parishes won't even talk to each other, or people block each other online and won't talk to each other anymore. When we are losing sight and we are losing our vision on what is most important about everything, which is our unity with Jesus Christ, our unity with each other in Christ, in the church, and we need to keep that in mind above all else. Political views, economic, anything. We need to keep our unity in Christ as our number one priority for each other. And because of our unity in Christ, we need to minister to each other and help each other regardless of what any individual believes about politics, what any individual believes about economics, anything you can think of, anything that can divide us. I think many of us are failing in this respect. And we can change this mentality if we recognize what we're doing and how we're being judgmental towards other people. We can back it up. We can, say, let's not take this mentality. Let's not be judgmental. Let's instead pray for this person. Let's, hear them out. Let's have intelligent discussions instead. And at the end of the day, we've all gained something. We've all learned something from each other, and we can go home and pray for each other and still continue to help each other and not be divided by something that is going to be irrelevant when we all die. When everything is said and done, every single one of us is going to die. And when that happens and we are far away from this world and we are in the next, those things are not going to matter anymore in the spiritual realm, in the afterlife. Yet we are so divided by them here on earth that there's a serious potential that we could still be divided in the spiritual world. We could have anger and division because of something as minuscule as political views here on earth. Let us talk to each other in love. Let us discuss our views in love. Let us debate in love. And instead of assuming malintent, instead of assuming malicious and negative intent from the other side, let us listen to them. Let us have a just genuine, level-headed discussion with them about different views and how they affect things and so on and so forth. And at the end of the day, like I said, go home, all pray for each other, and the devil has lost, and the devil will have not succeeded for that day in dividing us. So that's really all I have to say about this. I hope that everyone can see what I'm talking about and everyone can observe what is going on, because this is obviously very, very bad for the church. Political views can, wreak havoc between families and churches and lots of other things. And in the Protestant world, I find that many people are choosing to go to specific churches solely because of their political views, like more traditional Protestants going to the Episcopal Church instead of the Anglican Church down the street because the Episcopal Church is, super liberal, or, choosing to go to one church because it's, more conservative. Instead of, like we have in the Orthodox Church, we have a unity that transcends political views, that transcends our race, our nationality, how intelligent we are, any of those things. And it is just ultimately entwined with love for each other, and we need to keep our sight on that, and we need to repent of our very haughty and unholy attitudes towards other people. I hope everyone has a good evening, and tomorrow is the feast of St. Barbara, so I'm hoping to go to liturgy for that. I hope a lot of different parishes have liturgies for that, so I hope everyone has a good evening.